So let's take a closer look at this Cam Link Pro from Elgato. We wanted to get this for quite some time actually. I've been following the prices throughout the around year that it has been out. And Black Friday was its all-time lowest price on Amazon, was 50% off, which was kind of a steal. So of course I had to pick it up, even though I don't really record too much videos inside my computer. Hopefully that will change because I currently own the Elgato Cam Link 4K. I have two of those connected to my computer via two different USB root hubs, but they're just constantly giving me issues like cameras just freezing all of a sudden. So if I'm, for instance, streaming a game with my camera on, all of a sudden the camera will just be freezing and the game will still be playing just fine or record just fine. And I've had other issues, especially early on with PCI Express Generation 4 and AMD CPUs, which is what I'm running with earlier BIOSes, gave me a lot of USB issues. And capturing software like XSplit, which is my preferred capturing software with two Cam Link 4Ks inside my computer. For instance, one of them will always open up with colors all looking wrong. So I had to go in manually for that specific device and set the color right again. And every time I would open up the application again, it will just default back to the wrong coloring and so on and so on. So I've had multiple issues with the USB Elgato Cam Link 4K to the certain point where I don't really use them all that much. Hopefully that will change with this one here, so I can connect up my cameras. I have the overhead camera here connected to my computer, and I have a main camera on my computer for webcam or A-roll shots. I want to use that a little bit more maybe. And I also have other cameras. For instance, this Panasonic camera that I don't really use at all. Maybe I can hook this up as well. I have two of these that I don't really use and get maybe a second angle. And yeah, I'm not really sure. So, but this one, of course, you can have up to 4 HDMI inputs, which is excellent. At up to 4K at 30 FPS. Unfortunately, no 60 FPS. That would have been awesome, just for future-proofing. Not really something I need right now. But anyways, let's have a look around the box. You can have, of course, a single camera for just the full camera recording. But you can also have quad cameras. And you can have side-by-side mode. And you can have picture-in-picture. But I believe the picture-in-picture and all of these other modes here is only really for the HDMI 1 input. So that should be your main input. And from there, you can actually use all the other cameras together with that HDMI 1 input. So for instance, your main camera where you record yourself, HDMI 1, and then you can show other angles or other, maybe a drop down shot if you want to do some kind of unboxing and so on. And you can switch easy between those and also have them side by side and picture in picture, which is kind of nice. Gonna play around with that in the future. On the back side here, do see a little bit more of the card itself and the fact that this one is running PCI Express. Hopefully that will mitigate all of the issues I've had with USB, because USB still is not all that reliable on an AMD device. And of course supports Windows 10 and later, 6th generation i7 or later, and of course Ryzen 7 or better, and an NVIDIA GTX 10XX or better. Hopefully better if you want to use, of course, hardware encoding as well. Little Cam Link Pro branding on the left side of the box and nothing really here on the bottom side. So let's just get into this one. Let's cut through the seal. There's two tapes here on each side. So it is brand new. And of course I can link this down in the description below if you're interested. I'm not really sure if the offer still stands on Amazon, but you can always go and check it out. That's definitely the lowest price I have seen it from. But anyways, inside here we get another box. Wow, surprise, surprise. Let's use as much cardboard as we possibly can. Little Elgato branding there. On the back side, we have a little chart here. I'm not really sure what that is for. Some more details here on the back side of the box. Probably for the Chinese market because it is all in Mandarin or similar languages. And you have a little instructions built inside the lid. I kind of like to see this so they don't have to include another piece of instruction or another piece of paper inside the box to actually instruct you how to use it. But it is, of course, very easy. Turn off your computer, plug it into a PCI Express port. You need to use a PCI Express x4 port. I believe it's PCI Express Gen 2 or later. So it needs to be electronically connected to a x4 port. So even though the PCI Express port on your motherboard could look like this, or even look like a PCI Express x16. For instance, this graphics card from AMD, the Radeon Pro W3100, you can see it does have a PCI Express x16 size connector, but it's actually only hooked up to PCI Express x4. Or is this x8 actually? I'm not really sure. Maybe it is PCI Express x8 actually, and this is x4. So you can see it doesn't always need the full bandwidth of the port. And even though if your motherboard have a PCI Express 16 slot, so the full size slot, it's not really always the case that it is fully times 16 electronically hooked up. So definitely make sure it is so. It could be only times 2, times 1, or times 4, or times 16, or times 8. You need to really consult your motherboard instructions. So just be aware of that. This one does need a times 4 slot and PCI Express Gen 2 or later to get the full bandwidth. So if you have issues, definitely look into that. And of course, you just hook in your camera, and you can have up to 4 cameras, or you can also hook in other devices if you just want to record to your PC from a gaming console and so on. But of course, you are limited to 30 FPS, at least at 4K. And on the other side of the box, we of course have the capture card itself. Let's just get rid of that. And we do actually have some paperwork underneath. We have a little case badge here for Elgato logo. So of course, if you want to put this on your case or whatever you would like to put it on, does have some sticky tape on there, you can do so. And then we have some legal information, I believe. Important safety instructions. It is so important that it is so tiny that you can't even read it without glasses or a magnifying glass. Very, very important. Yeah, whatever. This is something they have to include still. Kind of a waste of paper, and I don't think we have anything else inside the box. So let's just get rid of that. And let's bring the main competitor in here. Very small and lightweight card. I actually think it is aluminum or some kind of metal shroud here. Kind of nice. I thought it would be plastic. And of course it is nicely tucked away in this anti-static bag here to keep it safe. And at the end here we have those HDMI inputs. But anyways, let's just get it outside and have a closer look. So pretty much just 4 Elgato Cam Link 4Ks tucked in here. The good thing about this one is, of course, it uses a PCI Express bus. So hopefully it will be a little bit more stable, at least for me. And screws here holding everything in place. Let's just have a look at the front here. So HDMI 1 is of course the one that is closest to the socket. 2, 3, and 4. And the one, like I said, is the one that has all the multi-camera functions. So use that as your primary one. Little Elgato branding. Kind of like that it is all black. Doesn't really matter too much, but it kind of fits with the aesthetic of my case. Little Elgato branding here on top. Nothing really on the end of the card. And then of course we have that PCI Express times 4 electronically wired PCI Express times 4. And it also have a physical size of a 4 connector. So it is a little bit weird, that PCI Express specifications, because times 4 can also mean the size of the port or the plug. And it can also mean the electronic wires underneath the plug, or how it is wired up. So it can be PCI Express times 4 slot, and also be PCI Express times 4 wired, but it can also be PCI Express Gen 1 wired, or PCI Express 1 wired, or PCI Express 2 wired. So we never know, but this of course have wires or connections through all the plug here. So this is times 4 electronically, and a lot of information here underneath. And yeah, like I said, this is definitely a metal shroud. It feels like stainless steel, and it is a relatively small card, so it doesn't really take up more room than the socket itself. So you can see I can almost squeeze a finger in there between the where you screw it in and the socket. So if you, like me, have a GPU holder inside your case that is connected to the lower PCI Express slots, anti-sag bracket rather, this one will also fit underneath that. If it was like higher in than the PCI Express slot here, it probably would not fit. So that is good news, because I only really have one times 4 slot on my motherboard left, and that is a PCI Express Gen 4 times 4 slot, and also hooked up times 4 electronically. So that is perfect for this one here. So that's everything you get in the box. And just for comparison here, you can see compared to my 2 Cam Link 4Ks, both of them still work like they should, but just keep giving me issues. But you can see 4 of these here actually inside of the Cam Link Pro. Without its casing, it probably would fit pretty okay in here. And just to be able to remove those 2 USB cables or plugs from a computer could also potentially fix, hopefully, some of the instability issues I've had with the cameras here and other devices, because they're pretty demanding devices. Of course, you need USB 3.2, so 5 gigabits per second. And if you have 2 devices, you need to make sure you have 2 different root hubs you're connected to. So one is connected through the chipset and one is connected through the CPU. Versus this one here will be connected through the chipset with PCI Express protocol. So hopefully more stable. But anyways, this is just the size comparison here between the 2. Now, of course, let's connected to my computer. And this is my case before installing the Cam Link Pro. You can see the slot going in there. And this is a perfect example of a PCI Express x4 slot that is kind of disguised behind a PCI Express x16 port. So it's only hooked up x4 electronically, but it is like using a full-size x16 slot. So very confusing, but you can see I have this anti-sag bracket there hooked up to my GPU. This is a 4090 MSI Gaming Trio. So let's just install the card and have a closer look. So first step done, it is connected. I had a little issue with some of the plugs in here. Just have to remove some of the wires, kind of getting a little bit in the way. In there, the wires that had multiple colors were getting a little bit in the way, and I also have a fan header right here. It's not getting in the way, but it is very close, so you could potentially have some issues with some of the devices connected, but this one seemed to be fine enough. And the GPU sag bracket here also fits perfectly, so no issues there. Like I said, it is a little recessed, so wouldn't really get in the way of this specific GPU socket here, or sag bracket. So overall actually looks pretty nice, almost like it is meant to be there. And we are all done. My USB riser is installed properly now, and you can see there's room for the cables down here without them interfering too much. And of course there's no fans or anything to take a hold of or to take account of. GPU sag bracket fits in there perfectly, and also my pretty big GPU there is also fits perfectly. So yeah, definitely pretty easy install. Just make sure you have a x4 wired connector so you can take full advantage of the bandwidth. That's pretty much just the first look and unboxing of the Cam Link Pro. Hopefully it will fix all of my issues, but first impressions, definitely feel like I'm getting a lot for my money, especially because I got it 50% off. I would not have bought it at full retail price because I don't really need it, but potentially I would really like to need it in the future and maybe get into some streaming again and maybe get into recording on my computer again, just to make it a little more easier workflow. And this card hopefully will get me there. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope to see you again in a future one. Until then, take care.